strong.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Between the Dots. Western Conference predictions today. That's what we got going on for you. How you guys doing today? I'm here as always with Kijo and Roy Keith. How you guys doing?
Feeling good. I'm pumped to talk about the Western Conference. The East was fun last week and ready to do it all again with the West.
And preseason starting too. Watched a game last night, so it was great to have it back on the TV.
And preseason or not, when there's hockey on the TV, it's just, you gotta love it.
Oh yeah. And then they had the Australia Global Series too that happened this past week too. That's exciting stuff.
Stay up? Anyone up at midnight to watch that?
I'll be honest, I just watched the highlight pack of that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. It's not for us, right?
Yeah. No, but yeah, still good to grow the game out in Australia too. It was the Coyotes and the Kings faced off. There was 2 games out there, so they split those 2, which was some exciting stuff still to see, right? And I guess like Coach was saying, they had like some good team bonding activities happening out there too. So yeah, overall that's good.
Yeah.
But nice to see preseason's back. So
Didn't watch it live, but did you guys see the Logan Cooley goal?
I did see the highlight of that one. That was
That
nasty.
was like a goal of the year in the preseason. Like, that was nuts.
Yeah, the little spinorama. That was beautiful. Yeah,
Hopefully that created a few fans.
Yeah, seriously, yeah. So we're going to talk about the Coyotes today. We're going to talk about all the teams in the West, really kind of break down where we think they're going to be, who makes playoffs, who doesn't as well. Also, a little side note to these predictions. If one of us, so at the end of the year, we're going to see how accurate we are with these. We're going to get 1 point if we guessed the team correctly who makes playoffs, all right? And we're going to get 3 points if you guess a team's exact ranking in the standings as well. So like a little bit of a side bet to see just how accurate we are with these as well. Cool. But yeah, so if you're watching, make sure you hit subscribe, all right, just so you can always stay up to date with everything that we're doing. And we'll just hop right into it today. So I guess Kijo, why don't you start us off?
Sounds good. So, it's funny, looking at the West, when we did the East last week, I find it was a little bit harder. Obviously, a lot of like 10 o'clock games, so we don't watch the West as much, not as familiar with the teams, even some of the players. However, one guy I'm familiar with, and I'm sure the two of you are as well, is Connor McDavid, the Edmonton Oilers. That's why I've got the Oilers finishing first in the Pacific Division. McDavid and Draisaitl, I think they're the 2 best players in the league. They add Connor Brown in the offseason. When McDavid and Brown played together in Erie, they were phenomenal. Connor Brown was actually the captain of that team. And I just think it's one of those moves that it's not – obviously Connor Brown isn't like a McDavid or a Draisaitl, but it's just one of those smaller moves that I think does a lot for a team. If you look at it from the outside, maybe it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think he'll fit in really well there. My only worry for Edmonton is Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell. Are those 2 going to be good enough? We know Jack Campbell, when he's good, he's very good. But when he's off, he's just not even – there's some points where he even looked like an NHL goalie when he's off. But Stuart Skinner there as well. The 2 of them, if one of them can get hot and just keep the pucks out of their net, I'm sure McDavid and Draisaitl will be able to fill the net. So that's why I have Edmonton at number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2 in the Pacific is Vegas. I mean, Stanley Cup champs, didn't change a whole lot. Am I worried about the Stanley Cup hangover? I don't think so. They're a new team. I think they're still hungry to win, as are all the other teams in the league. But I think Vegas, they'll come out ready to try to repeat Stanley Cup champs. So that's why I got him at number 2. And number 3 in the Pacific, the Los Angeles Kings. We talked about Dubois coming to LA. I really think he's going to do a lot for them. We talked about how deep they are down the middle. Also, I'm excited to see former Barrie Colt, Brant Clark, on D for the Kings. He was great to watch last year. I watched him a few times in Barrie, and phenomenal player. And I think he'll make the step to the NHL and have a good year.
Oh yeah.
What do you guys think of my top 3 in the Pacific?
If I comment
You
on
guys are
like
both-
Edmonton first, I also really like the Connor Brown signing. Downtown Connor Brown is what we'd call him when he was in Ottawa. He was great for us. I'm pretty sure he has the record for most consecutive goals in like consecutive games for Ottawa too as a Senator. He scored like in 13 straight games or something crazy like that. He was locked in. So I really like that signing for Edmonton, and yeah, maybe they'll give the captain to Connor Brown and take it away from McDavid. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I like those 3 too as well. Those are kind of like the big dogs right now of the Pacific. So I'm curious to see about LA. They're the one that like might surprise me a little bit this year, just because like they lose a little bit of depth with trading away Velarde and Iafallo, but they get back Dubois, which makes them really deep down the middle. So I still like them as well in the Pacific.
Yeah, those will be exciting games to watch in Edmonton and even in the West in general. But we'll move to the Central. Colorado, a few off-season moves. They get Jonathan Drouin, Ryan Johansson, Miles Wood, and one of the more underrated ones, again, I think, is Ross Colton from Tampa Bay. I think he's a guy who is still fairly new to the league, and I think not that he needed a fresh start, but maybe if he goes to a team like Colorado and he has maybe a bit bigger of a role, he'd be able to put up a few more points. And I think he was solid in Tampa and can even up his game even more in Colorado. Obviously led by Cale Makar on the blue line, and then Nathan McKinnon up front. Another solid season, I think, in my opinion, ahead for Colorado. Number 2 in the Central, the Dallas Stars. So their top line of Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski, they were phenomenal last year. And I think I heard a few things about Robertson. Is he going to excel like he did last year? But in my opinion, I think he's going to get even better. He's a big body. He had really good year last year and another year of experience in the NHL. I think he's going to continue to grow as a player, and I think he'll put even more points up than he did last year. And then the addition of Matt Duchene, maybe Matt Duchene's his past years, he had more points, and not sure if he'll put up as many, but I think, again, another solid guy, lots of NHL experience. I think he'll fit in well in Dallas. Third in the Central, the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota is, I feel like if you play in the NHL and you play in Minnesota, they just have to be one of those teams that you're just not thrilled to play. I just think that they do all the little things right, and they've got, I think they're underrated. Obviously Kaprizov he's good, and they have a lot of good forwards and good D as well. I just think they're not one of the flashiest of teams, let's say. So always hard to beat. I think they'll be good. Addition of Pat Maroon. I don't really know how much that's going to do, because I know he 3 cups in a row, Maroon won, I think. But I don't know. Don't think he's going to be putting very many pucks in the net. And when they come to Toronto, Reeves is going to take him down anyway, so it doesn't matter.
The big rig won all the cups he already had. He used them all up in 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. But another veteran guy. I'm sure he'll help him out in the dressing room and maybe a little bit on the ice, but we'll see. Wild card 1, the Calgary Flames. I think the Flames have too much talent. It was tough for them when they lost Makachuk. I mean, they were put in a tough position. I think the haul they got for him was pretty good. And I still think with Lindholm, Kadri, Huberdeau, Mangiapane, another former Barrie Colt, and then Jacob Markstrom in net. I think Markstrom's bound to have another good year like he did 1 year in Vancouver, I believe it was. He had a solid year that year, and I think he's not that he was off last year, but I think he'll have a better year this year between the pipes for Calgary. And then the Winnipeg Jets. So this is like we talked about for LA. They gained Dubois. The Jets lost him. Iafallo and Velarde coming in, I think, are two good depth pieces. I have them also at wildcard too, maybe just because I want as many Canadian teams in the playoffs as I can get. Because once the Leafs lose, but they're winning it all this year. But if they do lose, all the Canadian teams in to cheer for is always fun. So Winnipeg Jets at wildcard number 2. Before I get into the teams that I have missing, do you guys have any comments on those teams?
Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, I think the Central is more or less like those top 3. That's a lock. Like, I think it's a pretty sizable gap when you get down to number 4. So I think any combination of those 3, it's tough to argue that.
Yeah, I was going to say go get them, but I mean, there's not much to get there. I think I agree with those 3. I think the 3 in the Central specifically, those 3 are kind of ahead. Winnipeg's not far behind, but there is a big drop-off. Regarding the team that you said missed, you haven't really touched on Seattle yet, but Seattle, that would be, I'd be surprised to see Seattle miss myself, but just because they made it, to the second round last year, didn't they? A good year, by all means, was a huge successful year for them last year. And if they missed this year, I guess they would consider that a bit of a letdown and a bit of a step back. But hey, I bet they'd embrace the underdog role again all year, as they kind of did last year. So I would love to see if Winnipeg and Calgary both made it, though. More Canadian teams in, the merrier. So more for me to root for as well. But yeah.
So like you mentioned, Seattle, if they might get in, and if they don't, they're just going to miss. And in my opinion, that's because I just don't think, I know they have Beniers. He's good. He's continuing to get better. I'm sure he'll have a better year this year even than he did last year, but I still think they're missing that stud. They just need that number 1 guy, and again, maybe Beniers will in a couple of years be that guy, but for them to succeed right now, I just think they need that number one stud forward, defenseman, whatever it is.
Yeah. They need an Austin Matthews or something to help get them into the 3rd round or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, but seriously, they need a big gun like that.
Yeah.
And I think
this is what they lack. It is what they lack a little bit.
Yeah. A good playoff goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I just have them just missing. And then number 10, the Vancouver Canucks. I really think that losing Horvat last year is going to be a tough one for them to replace. Pettersson obviously is there, JT Miller, Brock Besser. Can they carry them? I'm not sure that those will be the 3 guys that'll be good enough to get them into the playoffs. New captain Quinn Hughes there as well. Again, I hope I'm wrong, because another Canadian team, I like cheering for Vancouver, hope they get in, but I don't see them making it this year. Number 11, the Nashville Predators. They took all the Leafs guys in the offseason, apparently, with O'Reilly and Shen. Is O'Reilly a good number 1 center still? Potentially, but is he? I don't think they have enough firepower. Although their D with Yossi, Shen, McDonough, and Barry, I think those guys are still solid and will be able to keep the puck out of their net. But do they have enough offense? I'm not sure. Maybe 4 years ago as well with those D might have been, they're a little past their prime, but still 4 solid defensemen. The St. Louis Blues. This was a tough one. I really didn't know where to put St. Louis, because I looked at it, reviewed it, and I thought St. Louis, number 12, is that too low? All of it, in my opinion, hinges on Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas. 2 good young players. Are they going to be able to pull their team into the playoffs? It's going to be tough. I know they're going to have to get on a pretty good win streak and hopefully not lose too many to eventually get themselves out of it early. But they can potentially hang around and get into the playoffs. But at this point, I don't see St. Louis making it in. I probably do see Binnington chucking another water bottle or two this year. And then out of all the teams, I think between the East and the West, the one team I hope I'm the most wrong about is the Anaheim Ducks. I think you look at them now, and it's, again, obviously I have them at 13, not getting in, but Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Mason McTavish, Leo Carlson, Jamie Drysdale, Owen Zellweger, their young talent is, I think, in 2 years, 100% they'll be in. They'll be fighting for a top spot. But at this point, I still think they're going to need a few more years before those guys are, like, maybe McTavish and Terry. Terry for sure. Terry's been in the league for a few years, but I just think they need a couple more years, play together, grow that chemistry, work with the veteran guys on their team as well. But they might not get in, but I think they'll be a very exciting team to watch.
Do you see what Zegras was offered for a contract? Do you guys see that? They were offering him three or 4 million per year AAV. That's what Anaheim's offering him right now. And
Is that a bridge deal?
I have no idea. They were saying, like, well, even if it was a bridge deal, they were saying like comparables for guys that were in his draft class. And so far, you have like, there's been like Robertson, there's been like Jack Hughes, there's been like these guys that are making like, some of those are guys in different classes as well. They gave some from the year before as well, but everybody is making like 8 million, basically like 7 million minimum. So it's kind of like a little bit of a slap in the face to Zegras. So I'm curious to see if they can figure that out by the end of the year. I like them, Anaheim, though. Like, I don't think they're making playoffs either, but they're going to be fun to watch. And you remember Mason McTavish in the World Juniors too, when he saved that goal in overtime when he knocked it out of midair, and then
That was wild.
brought it back. That's got to be one of the craziest World Junior moments of all time. Like, if they were doing a top 10, I feel like that would fall pretty high on that top 10.
So the next team, Arizona. Where's Arizona going to finish? Probably pretty low. Like, I have them there. They had a lot of change in the offseason. I don't know. They're a team that just has a lot of NHL guys that I think no studs really. So they added Dumba, Dursey, Bukestad, Kerfoot, Zucker, and then Logan Cooley, like we mentioned off the top with that highlight reel goal in the exhibition game. I don't know. I don't see a lot from Arizona, nor will I tune in to a single Arizona Coyotes game.
I'm high on the Yotes this year. I think they could be actually solid. Like, they could be. I think they're one of my like surprise teams that that I think could honestly finish higher up. Like, I don't know if they can get to where they need to be for playoffs. Like, if they are, they're going to be in like wild card, I think. But I really like what they did with the guys they brought in this offseason, and like adding a guy like Logan Cooley too, who's starting to turn out to be like that top player. Well, like, we'll see after this year, but just from the highlights so far this year, he's looking a little more dynamic than like Slavkovsky is. So he's looking like that's a great pick there for Arizona. But I'm high on the Yotes this year. We'll see how they do.
Yeah, me too, honestly. Arizona for me is like Anaheim for you, Kijo. I'd want to put them higher. I just don't. I can't justify it yet.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that Barrett Hayton takes a step. Like, Keller was insane last year, and I, for whatever reason, have hope with Vejmelka. I've always liked him. Like, I feel like he's just been in this brutal position, but he's held his own on the Yotes ever since he's been in North America. Like, I like them too, but it's hard to really push them up above teams like Seattle or Vancouver right now until they actually like prove something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say if the Yotes make the playoffs, we'll go see a game, fellas, but that would include flights, and there's only 5,000 seats at the game, so don't think we're going to that one. At number 15, the Chicago Blackhawks or the Connor Bedard show. Connor Bedard with Taylor Hall on the line. Only reason I'll tune in to watch Chicago. I watched them last year against Toronto. And this is when they still had guys like Max Domi, and obviously didn't have Bedard yet, but they're not good. They've got a lot of work to do. And I think, like many hockey fans, will be tuning in to see Connor Bedard, but not much else on that team, I don't think. But hopefully he puts up a lot of points. Interesting to see where he goes in our fantasy draft. Talk about that later on as well. But the last team, 16th place in the Western Conference, the San Jose Sharks. Duclair, nice addition in the offseason. We've still got Hoffman, Granlund, Hurdle. I don't have much more to say about the San Jose Sharks. I don't know.
Sellers at the deadline for sure.
Yeah, be a tough time to be a San Jose Sharks fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I round out my Western Conference predictions. Go Sharks, go.
I was going to say, imagine being a team at the bottom of the standings and just losing 100 points from your blue line.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to recover from.
Yeah.
And I think Couture is banged up too to start the year a little bit, so we'll see. We'll see how they end up this year. So, yeah, all in all, I can agree with a lot of those picks there. So I'll dive into mine next here. Before that, just a reminder, if you're listening to, make sure you give us a follow on social media on Instagram or TikTok, as well as to head on over to YouTube and hit subscribe just so you can stay up to date and get notifications whenever we're posting stuff as well too. So I'll hop right into my picks now as well. So for me, similarly to you, Kijo, I have Edmonton at the top of the Pacific, right? Then the Knights and the Kings as well. I think we have the exact same order for that. Connor Brown was a nice addition to Edmonton. I think that's part of the reason why I put them up at top, and also slid Vegas down one just because, you know, that Stanley Cup hangover is a real thing. Like, I think they come in and they're going to be just a little tired, and just that'll make them slide down a little bit, but obviously still good enough to make the playoffs. Connor Brown was a nice addition to Edmonton. And then also going to say that the Kings still finish in that third spot. They're just balanced throughout their lineup. So overall, I like what they got going on deep down the middle. Those are my top three. I'll hop over to the Central, my top three for that. I put Dallas as first. I think Dallas as well is one of the most improved teams this year in the league, bringing in like Matt Duchene, who's still got some good hockey left in him, Craig Smith as well. I think they're one of the best looking lineups too overall in the NHL, just like with Robertson still there, and just all in all, like, solid defense. Wyatt Johnson too is a year older. They're deep too. Like, they have Tyler Seguin on their third line now, and they still have Pavelski there, and just like they're hungry. So I think like Miro Heiskanen on D, like they're just so well balanced, and I think that's going to make them finish at the top there in the Central. From there, Colorado, again, just some of the best talent in the league on Colorado, right? You get McKinnon, you get Makar, right? That whole top line, even with Rantanen and Landeskog as well too. I think Landeskog, he's usually banged up for about majority of the year, so if he stays healthy, then they can be good. But they bring in like Jonathan Drouin this year, and they still have Lehkonen. They bring in Ryan Johansson, so they bring in some pieces, and overall I think they're going to be solid again. And then lastly, to round out the Central, the top three in the Central, just the Wild, who they still got a good team as well. Kaprizov, Zuccarello, right? So they're pretty much bringing back the same guys. So I think if I was to bet safely on like any team to make the playoffs, I feel like I would bet Minnesota, just because of how like they're just pretty much bringing everybody back, kind of thing. Pretty much the same team. So I think I like what they got going on too. So
I like Heiskanen in Dallas. I'm excited to see him with another year experience too. I think he's going to be a stud for them, and got him at number one there in the Central. I wouldn't be surprised if they got it at number one, but yeah, I'm excited to see Heiskanen.
Yeah, we'll see. I got the Kraken then finishing as my wild card one. So just a solid and just like deep team. Like you said, they it's weird because like I feel weird kind of putting them in ahead of a team like Calgary or even like St. Louis and even Vancouver who have like much better stars on their team, like Vancouver with Pedersen and JT Miller, Calgary with Huberdeau, but for Seattle, they're just like three, four lines even of just guys who are all really good NHL players. And like depth wins championships and it wins hockey games. So that's why I have them basically in that spot. Also, like Beniers getting a year older, another year under his belt. Just really like kind of what they have going on there. I like their D as well too, and again, just like a really solid team. And I think that that's going to basically get them in as wild card one. And then the Jets claimed my last spot. So they beat out the Flames again, not by much, but they're gonna beat out the Flames again this year. So Flames just missing. Basically, that's just I have them missing because of the fact that they lose to Foley, and there's still some questions around their like Sharon Govich. I really liked what Coronado was doing in the preseason the other night when they won like 10-0. But overall, I just need to see it from those guys first, and then also I'd like to see it from Huberdeau too before I can put them in over the Jets. And I love the Jets, their depth this year with Iafallo and Velarde on their team as well as Hellebuyck in net. So for those reasons, that's why I have the Jets in over the Flames. But again, like last year, it was a margin of 2 points, and I think it's going to come down to a margin of like 2 to 5 points again this year between that wild card two and that 9 spot for me. What do you guys think about the Jets over the Flames there? Do you kind of agree or disagree?
I think it's Hellebuyck's the reason they get in over the Flames. If that's how it
Yeah.
happens, I just think the goalie, like you said, well, defense wins championships or depth, I believe you said, but goaltending can stop any leading scorers in the NHL or anything. So I think Hellebuyck's the reason why the Jets get in if they do over the Flames.
Yeah, Vezina goalie in a contract year.
Yeah.
Can't rule them out, you know?
Yeah. And like he seems motivated to be in Winnipeg still. I was listening to him in an interview the other day, and he was like dancing around all the questions the right way. Like reporters were trying to get him to basically say like, "Oh, like I don't really want to be in Winnipeg," or like I'm uncertain where I'll end up after this year. But he's like, "No, like I love it here, and my focus is to like be here." He said he's an outdoorsy person, is what he said, so that's why he likes it in Winnipeg. But overall, like I still like the Jets to get in over the Flames, and I'll need to see it from guys like Huberdeau and Sharon Govich and Coronado before I can put them in for me. But after
I
after
like that.
yeah, after 10 or after 9 there, Calgary, I think that's where I see a substantial drop off in the West. Like St. Louis, there's a clog of like those 4 teams there, like St. Louis, Arizona, Vancouver, and then yeah, Vancouver, those 3 there, along even with like a little bit of Nashville. But those 3 or 4 teams there, they could all surprise me and they could switch places a little bit with each other. I don't think any of those get in. Out of all those ones, I do like St. Louis the most. And then like they added Kevin Hayes this offseason, so they got a little deeper down the middle. But I still don't like him enough, obviously, to put him in. But they're getting older and they're starting to like tail off a little bit. I do like what they have going on, but overall, not enough to get in. Arizona too, most improved team in the league for me this year, but like getting Zucker, getting Bukestad, Dumba, I don't know if it's necessarily enough to put them in. Maybe Logan Cooley helps them, and you never know, surprises happen. But again, I have them sitting at 11th, and then Vancouver.
You getting a Yotes jersey, Felix? You got them at 11.
Yeah, the Kachina
Good
one or whatever. But Vancouver 11, like I've heard enough of like the Vancouver possibly making the playoffs talk this year. I don't see that happening at all. Like I would be very surprised if I saw Vancouver making playoffs. Like they said, they switched up the D a little bit this year. Like they got rid of Ekman Larson, and they brought in like Ian Cole, and it's like okay, like it's a little bit of an
Another young
improvement,
guy.
but it's not. I don't think that's enough. That's going to separate them. They brought in Pui Suter too. What do you like about that, Rory?
Yeah, like it's kind of the same thing as Ian Cole. It's like, all right, he's just plugging a hole in the bottom six. He great penalty killer on the wings last year, but he's not going to provide much offense. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's like all right, plug and play kind of guy. Nothing crazy.
I don't love their wingers either. Like I like their centermen, right? You got Pedersen, Miller. I like those guys, but they're just their wingers. Like I feel like any of those guys could play on the top line, and any of those guys could also play on the fourth line. Like they have Podkolzin on their fourth line, and they have Kuzmenko on their first line, and it's like I feel like either of those guys can swap. I like Besser a little bit for wingers, but like just all in all, like I don't see Vancouver making it this year. Again, I kind of hope they do because then that's more Canadian teams that I can cheer for in the playoffs, and also I'm like a big Pedersen fan, so I mean, if they get in, he's going to be the sole reason why they're getting in, I think. But I really can't entertain the Vancouver making it conversation any longer. So I don't think they're getting in.
Kuzmenko sounds like an Owen Hinch fantasy draft. Right?
Yeah, yeah. All the hidden gems. That's what Hinch's team is made of. Just a bunch of hidden gems, no stars. um, and then so basically after that, I have Chicago, who, I mean, one man can only do so much for his team, and that's what Connor Bedard's going to be doing this year. He's going to be doing the Lord's work for Chicago. I think, honestly, he could hit 40 goals this year. He's going to be my Calder pick, obviously. Really,
40 goals for Bedard.
I think so. Like,
I like
he's the guy on Chicago. If he stays healthy, I'm thinking 40 is reasonable for him. I really like him. But the problem is they have like one line of guys on that team. Like it's Taylor Hall, Connor Bedard, Tyler Johnson, and then from there their third and fourth line they bring in like Nick Foligno and Corey Perry to add to some depth. So I don't mind what they got going on, but I mean in terms of the star power, it's going to be Bedard, the Bedard show this year, and we'll see how far that can take them. Like maybe it pushes them up higher than I have them in the standings, but what I'm expecting is for them to still be near the bottom, but not nearly as bad as Anaheim and San Jose this year. I think Anaheim, I'd like to see them be good, but just they it's tough, right? It's not easy to be a good hockey team consistently, and they're still really young, and that has a lot to do with it for me. And then San Jose at the bottom. Also, I do though, like with Anaheim, I could see them even finishing higher because we were talking about like the importance of goalies. They got John Gibson, who can, if he gets hot, he could go on a run and steal some games for them. And they bring in guys like Gudis and Labushkin. They got Zellweger coming up. They'll have Killorn there this year, Leo Carlson as well. So like overall, they could surprise me. But for my rankings, I have them near the bottom, along with San Jose, who I believe San Jose are certain sellers this year at the deadline. Just banged up, and I can see some guys that are easily getting shipped out for picks. So we'll see what happens, but that's how I have it fixing up this year in the West.
And
Yeah,
the Sharks, like, what's you should take the Sharks out. Don't even include them.
Thanks for Tim Stützle, San Jose. He's looking beautiful right now.
I think you guys are high on Chicago.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. Like an 18-year-old is the only reason for them being above other teams, and it's like, yeah, he's probably going to be a phenom, but first year in the NHL, it's a barren wasteland around him. I don't know. Like he can only do so much, and I even think that that's too much to surpass other teams that at least have a couple
Yeah.
reasonable top 6 players, but
Yeah. I feel like I'm
I'm
high
excited
as
to see
well
him.
on Chicago just because I'm expecting such big things from Bedard, and that could
Yeah.
easily go, like that can easily be an overestimation of what he can do. So yeah, overall, like I hope he can do well and he could become like a phenom. But if he finishes with like even if he finishes with 80 points this year, 40 goals, 40 assists, that's a great year for him to have. But again, you can't do it all by yourself. So yeah, I could still be high in Chicago, and I could see them finishing lower, but we'll see. We'll see how much he can do. Roy, you wanted to give your picks, see what's different with yours.
Yeah, let's go. I know I got a couple differences compared to you guys, a couple bigger changes, but um, yeah, I guess I don't need to fly through every team. Like Edmonton Oilers, we know exactly what we're getting out of them. I'm excited to see Ekholm on that team for a full season. I think that's exactly what they needed, though. So I hope that they make a similar addition at the deadline. But yeah, I'm excited to see like just a little bit more of like a complete team, and Ekholm there kind of like solidifies that. Do you guys think that McDavid has another gear?
Oh,
Like, can he reach 70 goals? Do you think
200 points. Let's go.
200 points? Like, does he have another gear? Like,
well, he
or
finishes with what
was that the
one?
ceiling for him?
It was 153 last year, right? I think is what he finished with, and like that's impressive as it is, but it's funny. At the end of the year last year, he called everyone into the room and was saying like, "Guys, we need to be better." And it's funny that like thinking of him saying that because obviously he's done his part this year, but still just making sure everybody's
Yeah,
accountable and everybody's working out properly in the off season and coming ready to go for this year. Like I would love to see if he had another. Like I would love to see him get average 2 points a game. He was close last year, but just like I mean, he's so good. It's crazy. I saw a stat too, a really cool stat the other day, and it was number of times that a player reaches above I think 20 miles per hour on the ice this past season. And McDavid did it like 80 times. It was something like 77 times McDavid did it. And the next closest was McKinnon, and he had like 60. And then the next closest after that was actually Braden Point, and Point had like 40. So like it just shows how fast like McDavid and as well as McKinnon, throw him in there as well, but how fast those guys are. It was a really cool stat. I saw it for defense as well too, and it was really interesting to see the guys that were
yeah,
on
that's
that
cool.
list. Yeah,
I'm surprised Point would be third on that.
I know. Yeah, I was also surprised with that. Yeah, defense. It was like Bowen Byram actually was one of the top ones as well too. A lot of the young guys like Sanderson actually showed up on there. He was third on the list. Byram was second. I think Makar was first for
Humble
initial.
That
sense
makes
brag
sense.
there, eh?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I fit that stat in.
Where do
yeah.
you guys think Pat Maroon was on that list?
Did he make it once?
Yeah,
Somebody was pushing him.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think just the fact that it's Draisaitl and McDavid makes them like yeah, he pushes them to be like cup or bust. And you guys are higher on Connor Brown, but I think like having a speedy winger on that flank is exactly what he needs. I got Edmonton atop the West entirely. Um, and yeah, down to the Kings. I love the Kings, honestly. If they had a goalie, I would debatably even put them first. Um, it's just unreliable with Phoenix Copley. But I love like the entire team that they have in front of them. And we've seen teams like even Vegas with questionable goaltending going into playoffs. And that's more than enough, right? It's just like the roster that they have in front of them. And the Kings could very well be that roster this year, I think. Then I got the Flames third. I think that there's just something wrong. There's just like something wrong with that team last year, um, whether it was Sutter in the dressing room. Now he's out, and now I'm really hoping that that team rebounds. Like Huberto, that was his valley, and I think that's the same for Markstrom too. Like there's just so much more upside with that team. Markstrom 2.9 GAA, like that's going to come down. And the center depth is on par with LA as well. Like Lindholm, and then you got Lindholm and Kadri, and then Backlund. Backlund just signed like the 2-year deal as well today, and I think Backlund's an extremely underrated third liner for center there. And they got good wingers as well, and their defense is really deep and good defensively. Like I really like that team, and I think they bounce back. And then in the Central, I agree with Dallas being first there. I think that there's just more room for upside with Dallas as opposed to Colorado. Like Colorado, like as elite as they are, you know what you're getting there. And Dallas, like with those young players, Ottinger, Heiskanen, and Hintz and Robertson, like there's just more. I think there's more ceiling there. Like Heiskanen was an absolute horse in the playoffs last year. Like I think that they have another gear, so I think that they end first. And Wyatt Johnson getting another year on the wing, like I think that'll be huge for his development. I think he's going to be a stud. Colorado, I think that Landeskog is actually done for a while. I think you predicted the future there, folks. I think he's done for like a bit. So losing your captain's like
shocker.
That's a dagger.
This is a yearly thing. Yeah. I didn't even need to check the injury report for that one.
Yeah.
I just knew that he was going to be hurt. He might have sneezed and hurt his back or something. Holy.
I could be wrong, but he might be out for like the year, honestly. And then, the Wild, pretty safe pick. It's just they're kind of capped at third, in my opinion, until they're able to get a real number one center. And until those, so it's 2 more years, 14 mil in dead cap for the Wild. And I just think they're stuck until then. So maybe in 2026 they have a 1C. So I'll have
good for third. The Wild though. Like how many other teams would be able to even get into the playoffs with all that dead cap?
14 mil. Yeah, that's crazy. But I guess the biggest shocker is Vegas.
It's the Wild. Back to the Wild real quick. It's the Parise and who was the other buyout as well?
Suter.
Parise and Suter buyouts. Wow.
Yeah. 2 years left. It's like 7 mil a piece. That's dead cap. So yeah. But like Ryan Hartman is your 1C and Eriksson Ek is a great 2C, but I think that they're just kind of capped until they get that space back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, Vegas is the big surprise, I guess, compared to your guys' lists. I think that they have quite the Stanley Cup hangover. I was looking at their roster, and I don't know where those goals are going to come from. Like, their left side, their wingers are Barbashev, Howden, Cotter, and Carrier. Like, who's scoring goals off the left side? Like, Barbashev had a great playoffs, but there's no real precedent.
In the middle, baby.
Yeah, Eichel down the middle, and you got Marchessault on the right side. And then can you count on Stone, who just had 2 back surgeries to play a full season? Like, he's the heart and soul of that team. Mm-hmm. And then you got Amadio and Colasar behind them. Like, Stone and Marchessault are your only real offensive threats up front. And, like, as good as their defense are, I just don't know where the goals are coming from. And then Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson and net. I just, like, it's not reliable. I like their defense, but short summer, I wouldn't even be surprised, like, Seattle jumps them. I can't give them that kind of disrespect and have them miss playoffs. Mm-hmm. I'll say they hang on and get that wild card spot. So maybe a bit of a hot take, but I'm standing by it. Hopefully I'm not, this isn't a laughing clip at the end of the year. So, and similar thing with Winnipeg. Like, I think the skill is just, it's too much to deny. So like Ehlers was out for most of the year. Hopefully he gets a full season, and also Scheifele's in a contract year. So I think he's going to be motivated and he's going to put up a decent amount of numbers. So I guess that kind of hangs on if they're on the outside looking in, and then maybe Cheveldayoff decides to trade Hellebuck and Scheifele, which would be crazy. But then that would kind of mark the end of their run in playoffs, I guess. So,
they're punting on the season at that point if they're trading away Hellebuck and Scheifele.
They have to.
It's over for them. Like, break it down and rebuild after that if that's the case.
I think you have to. You can't risk losing them for nothing. You got to just start the rebuild because you're going to get some really good assets back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just touching on a couple of the teams on the outside, like Vancouver. It's crazy because like their best player at each position is unbelievable. Like you love Peter Pedersen, you love Hughes, and I'm a big Demko fan, but he's just hurt a little too often for my liking. But like the skill is so evident, it's just the pieces around them are just kind of
Yep.
they're just so meh, you know. Like
Yep.
their top six is competitive, but their bottom six is just a lot of holes. The depth isn't there. Like yeah, like you said, Ian Cole, Carson Soucy on the top line. Like it's just not. Their defense is shaky. You
Yep.
got apparently they call Myers the chaos giraffe in Vancouver. So
Didn't he win Rookie of the Year too when he was
he
a rookie?
did.
Man,
He did.
that's a fall off for him. That was he peaked early. He peaked early. A
I keep
giraffe.
getting the chaos giraffe. Yeah, keep getting these tough comments that Mo Sider is the next Myers because of the Calder. I'm just like, don't plant that seed. I don't even
Yeah.
want to think about that.
Different
Can't
players.
have it. Yeah. And then yeah, Arizona, I'd love to put them higher, but just that high end skill on Vancouver, like it's tough to put them past them, even Vancouver. So Nashville, they're just their forward core is just unrecognizable. I feel like you got O'Reilly and Nyquist potentially on your top line, two new faces. The fact that they're your top line is just crazy, you know. With Forsberg, like you hope that I really like Evangelista. I really hope that he takes a step. I don't really know what you can expect out of Novak on that second line, like a 25-year-old that comes in and puts up like 0.8 points per game or something like that. Like can't really rely on that repeating. I didn't even know who that guy was before last year. So yeah, I think you just hope on him and Tomasino taking some steps. And I actually like their prospect pool. Like they got Askarov and um, and they have like Sveshkov and Kemmel in their pipeline. And Trotz, I feel like he's not going to be shared or is like scared to shake things up. You know, he was like floating Askarov at the draft. So I don't know. I think he wants to add to that pool. I could see him selling some decent pieces at the deadline. So, and the rest just like speaks for itself. I don't know. Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago.
Yep. Chicago in the
Hopefully those are
basement for
9
you.
points for me there.
Yeah.
So,
Imagine Chicago finishes dead last, all right? And then that means they're basically drafting like Bedard's line mate essentially at that point. It'll be cool to see if who that ends up being if that's the
yeah,
case.
Celebrini looks really good.
Mhm.
He not to the level of Bedard, but he looks like a stud. And for Chicago, it doesn't even matter. Like teams on the outside looking in, I don't think you measure success based on your standings. I think you measure a successful season based on like your prospects.
Mhm.
So, like if Bedard puts up 80 points, I think that Chicago doesn't care if their team got 20. Like they're thrilled that, like, okay, now we can relax a little bit that Bedard is like the guy who we thought he could be in the NHL.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting his name, but there's like a German winger that they have who'll be playing up there, and I think that he looks pretty decent. So if he takes a step, I think they'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
You can't even say the same for San Jose. Like they don't have any prospects really coming up.
Yeah. They got to tear it down still. I mean, Chicago's got 2 draft picks too this upcoming year too. So like, I think that I'm excited to see what Bedard can do, and if they can just piece it together around him, then they'll be all right in the future. But they got and I hope Bedard can do well too as well, because like we've seen the last few first overall picks not really develop or pan out yet, right? Like Slavkovsky and Lafreniere and all those guys, like they last few have been so. So I'm hoping that Bedard can really just jump right in and be good this year. I think he can.
Yeah,
I think he can.
Chicago did the best thing for him by trying to just surround him with some skill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think did they get Josh Bailey too?
Mm-mm. No,
Or no, who's
he's
the other like somewhat skilled guy that
they got
they
Taylor
traded?
Hall. They got
Yeah,
Ryan Donato. He's not bad. He was coming from Boston. He's not bad.
I thought there was one other guy that they
Athanasiu
signed.
is there as
Athanasio,
well.
yeah. Taylor
Yeah,
Radish is still there. Tyler
so
Johnson.
they got some okay skill that at least
So
Bedard can play with and should be able to
yeah.
keep up with him.
Hmm.
Just hopefully like thinks on the same level that he does, right? I guess that's what you're kind of
Yeah.
hoping for.
Taylor Hall's the big one that they brought in. That those guys could be magical together. If Taylor Hall could
Yeah.
remember that year too, the year that he won MVP with New Jersey. If he could
Mhm.
figure it out again, then that could be a dynamic duo kind of thing for Chicago this year. So I'm excited to see where everybody kind of lands this year in terms of standings.
I wasn't big on it at the start of the episode, fellas, but I liked the West predictions.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. Who says nobody cares
I
about the West or we don't care about the West, right? We
I
care
feel
about
more
the
confident
West.
in the West than the East,
Yeah, the East.
predictions
Oh,
wise.
I know. Now looking back on the East, I'm thinking like, man, I can't believe I had like Boston missing the playoffs. I think Boston might make it, but I
Man, you're the Sens in the
anything
playoffs.
can happen. They're making it this year. How'd they do against the Leafs so far in preseason?
Oh, my preseason. You think Leafs are bad for planning the parade? Holy.
That's it. Plan the parade for playoffs. Just for us making playoffs, we're gonna throw a whole party. It's gonna be in Ottawa too, because we'll be heading for the games.
Let's get some more games under our belt here, and we can revisit preseason next episode. There's
That's
only
right.
been one
That's
Wings
right.
game so far, so
That's right. Yeah. Well, so speaking of next episode is going to be our big fantasy hockey draft special. All right. So make sure you tune in for that. We're going to be giving tips. We're going to be giving advice. All right. Listen to Kijo. He'll tell you what not to do. All right.
Okay.
Uh,
You're going to draft all the defensemen. There'll be no defensemen in the draft because Felix is going to take them all for whatever reason. I have no idea.
yeah, that's not necessarily the best strategy it didn't work out for me last year, so I wouldn't recommend
The
this
last
year.
4 years.
Yeah. But yeah, tune in for that. All right. We're also going to be, from then on, after that episode, we're going to be having our draft for the fantasy draft that takes place after that episode. So it's kind of a nice lead up for that. And then the week after that, it's regular season. And we'll be giving our Stanley Cup predictions as well as some like who we think is going to be winning trophies that year and just like our thoughts on maybe preseason and like some of the rosters that have been chosen. So, yeah. Any kind of final comments before we end the show today?
No, that was fun. I'm going to reach out to everyone in the draft just to remind you about the start time and everything like that. Also, thanks to everyone who ordered a hoodie. Those should be in soon. We'll get those shipped out to you ASAP. And hopefully a few special guests on in the near future. We're working on that and love to bring you guys a couple of special guests.
Yeah.
hints.
Rupe
Not-
Rupe hints? No, no.
Not Rupe hints. Literal hints.
Yeah. No hints. No hints. No Rupe hints either. So, alrighty. As always, guys, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. All right, and follow us on social media as well. We've been posting content throughout on TikTok and on Instagram as well. But just make sure you follow us on there and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel just so you stay up to date with everything that we're doing. And yeah, that's it for us today. All right, another good episode of Between the Dots, and we'll see you next week.